Tejo sat on the cold stone floor of the chamber, staring at the pulsing crystal formation. Hours had passed since the Volanta researchers had sealed him inside. His water supply was running low, and his equipment showed that the air recycling system in his suit would only last another day at most. He should have been terrified. He should have been dying from energy poisoning by now. According to everything he knew about ancient energy sources, prolonged exposure should have killed him within the first hour. Instead, he felt strangely calm. The crystal formation continued to pulse with warm orange and red light. Each time it brightened, Tejo felt a gentle warmth wash over him. It was not the burning heat he had expected, but something almost comforting, like sitting by a fireplace on a cold winter evening back on Earth. "This does not make sense," he said aloud, his voice echoing in the empty chamber. The energy readings should be lethal by now. As if responding to his words, the crystal pulsed brighter. The light seemed to swirl within the crystalline structure, forming patterns that almost looked like writing. Tejo stood up and walked closer, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. The symbols within the light were definitely pithy, but more complex than any he had seen before. As he watched, they seemed to shift and change, as if trying to communicate something urgent. He pulled out his translation pad and began recording the patterns. Ancient energy source. Consciousness ... preserved. He read slowly as his device worked to decode the symbols. Wait, consciousness. You mean there is someone in there? The crystal formation suddenly blazed with lights so bright that Tejo had to shield his eyes. When the glow faded to normal levels, new symbols were dancing. Within the crystal, these ones his translator could read more easily. We ... are here ... waiting ... so ... long. Tejo's hands trembled as he held his translation device. You are the Pirathi, but you died out thousands of years ago. More symbols formed in the crystal. Bodies ... gone ... consciousness ... remains ... in the fire ... energy ... we ... became ... one ... flame. The implications hit Tejo like a physical blow. The Pirathi had not simply died out. They had somehow transcended their physical forms and merged their consciousness with the elemental fire energy they had mastered. They were still alive, in a way, preserved within the crystal formations scattered across their former worlds. Why are you talking to me? Tejo asked. The Volante have been studying these sites for years. Why did you not speak to them? The crystal pulsed with what seemed like amusement. VELNT ... crystalline ... beings ... cannot ... here ... fire. Song ... you ... human ... you ... are ... different. New symbols began forming, these ones more complex. Tejo's translator worked harder to decode them, but the meaning slowly became clear. Your ... people ... carry ... old ... blood ... same ... genetic ... markers ... loud ... ooze. Two ... bond ... with ... elemental ... forces ... you ... are ... distant ... cousins ... Tejo stared at the crystal in amazement. You are saying humans are related to the pirate, that we have the same ability to work with elemental energy. Yes ... more ... than ... you ... ka ... chew ... choose 2 ... join ... us ... in the ... fire ... or ... remain as ... you ... dictate ... place. The offer hung in the air like a challenge. Tejo understood what the Pirathi consciousness was suggesting. He could somehow merge with the fire energy as they had done, transcending his physical limitations but also leaving his humanity behind. What would happen to me if I accept? He asked. The symbols shifted again. You ... would ... become ... fire ... and ... flesh. Together ... keep ... your ... mind ... your ... memories ... but ... gain. Power ... over ... thermal ... energy ... ability ... to sense ... life ... through ... heat ... signatures ... power ... to phase ... through ... matter ... when ... superheated ... Tejo thought about Soyoung and his other colleagues, imprisoned somewhere by the Volante. He thought about the systematic elimination of species that the Volante seemed to be conducting. If he stayed human, he would die here and no one would ever know the truth. Would I still be me? He asked. Yes ... enhanced ... but ... still ... Kim. Tay dash ho ... still ... human ... core ... but ... with abilities ... your ... ancestors ... once ... possessed. The crystal began pulsing faster, and Teho could feel warmth building in the chamber. Not dangerous heat, but something that seemed to call to something deep in his genetic memory. "There is something you are not telling me," Teho said. "Why? Do you want to help me? What do you gain from this?" The symbols that formed next were tinged with what seemed like sadness. "We, been, alone, for, long, lodging, galaxy, stagnate, under, vel, anti, control, day, fear, change, fear, species, might, challenge, dumb, they, have, kill, many, races, show, compatibility. With ancient powers Teho felt his anger rising. The Volante have been committing genocide for centuries they position themselves as protectors galactic order but are just afraid losing control your people and others like you represent hope for something better. The warmth in the chamber was growing stronger now. Teho could feel it seeping into his bones, not burning but awakening something that had been sleeping in his DNA for thousands of years. "If I do this, can I save my friends?" he asked, with fire energy you can do many things volante crystalline bodies are vulnerable to intense heat there technology realize on precise temperature control you would have advantages they cannot counter. Teho closed his eyes and thought about his options. Stay human and die uselessly in this chamber, or accept the Pyrathy gift and have a chance to rescue his colleagues and expose the Volante crimes. "Will it hurt?" he asked. "Pain, yes, but not pain, burning, pain, of awakening, becoming, more, where we, will, God, you, through, 3, process, Teho opened his eyes and looked directly at the crystal formation. The symbols within were now pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "I accept," he said firmly. The crystal blazed with light that filled the entire chamber. Teho felt heat wash over him, but instead of burning, it felt like coming home. The warmth seeped into his skin, his muscles, his bones. He could feel his cellular structure changing, adapting, evolving. Images flashed through his mind. Ancient Pyrathy cities, with buildings that grew from controlled fire energy, Pyrathy scientists learning to merge consciousness with elemental forces. The final transcendence as an entire civilization chose to become one with the fire rather than face extinction. The pain came in waves, but it was bearable. His body was becoming something new, something that could channel and control thermal energy without being consumed by it. He could feel new senses awakening, the ability to detect heat signatures, to feel the life force of living beings through their body temperature. When the transformation was complete, Teho stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by dancing flames that did not burn him. He held up his hand and watched fire dance between his fingers, warm and alive and completely under his control. "Welcome, brother, The Pyrathy consciousness whispered in his mind. "Now, go, save, your, people, and show, the galaxy, fire, truly, means." Teho smiled and turned toward the energy barrier that sealed the chamber entrance. He was no longer the helpless human researcher who had been betrayed and abandoned. He was something new, something the Volante had not expected. The fire followed where he willed it, and his will was focused on one goal: justice. Teho stood in the center of the chamber, flames dancing around his body like living ribbons of light. The fire did not burn his clothes or equipment. Instead, it seemed to protect him, creating a warm barrier between him and the cold stone. Walls. The energy barrier that had trapped him still shimmered across the chamber entrance. But now, instead of seeing it as an impossible obstacle, Teho could sense its structure through his new abilities. The barrier was created by controlling temperature differences in the air itself. To a being who could manipulate thermal energy, it was no more solid than morning mist. "Show me how to break through," he whispered to the Pyrathy consciousness that now shared space in his mind. Images flashed through his thoughts. He saw how to focus heat energy into precise beams, how to create temperature differences that would shatter crystalline structures. how to phase his own body through solid matter by temporarily converting it to superheated plasma. Taeho approached the energy barrier and placed his hand against it. Heat flowed from his palm, disrupting the delicate temperature balance that maintained the field. Within seconds, the barrier flickered and died. He stepped into the passage beyond, his enhanced senses immediately detecting the heat signatures of living beings throughout the ruins complex. Most were small creatures, probably local wildlife, but far above, he could sense for distinct human heat patterns and several larger, cooler signatures that had to be the So-young, Junho, Haijin, he said their names like a prayer. I am coming. The journey up through the ruins was different now. Where before he had needed artificial lighting to see in the dark passages, now he could sense heat patterns in the walls themselves. The Pyrethy had built their structures to channel thermal energy, and those ancient pathways still glowed faintly in his enhanced vision. As he climbed, the Pyrethy consciousness shared more knowledge with him. The extinct civilization had not been the only one to achieve elemental transcendence. There had been others. The Aquathy had merged with water and ice. The Terati had bonded with earth and metal. The Erethy had become one with wind and lightning. All of them had been systematically hunted down by the Volante over the centuries. The crystalline beings feared any species that could develop powers beyond their control. They had positioned themselves as the guardians of galactic stability, but in reality they were genocidal tyrants. How many civilizations have they destroyed? Taeho asked as he continued climbing. The answer came as a flood of images and emotions. Dozens of species, maybe hundreds, all eliminated because they showed potential for ancient energy compatibility. The Volante had been very careful, always making the extinctions look like natural disasters or inevitable evolution. But the pattern was clear to those who knew how to look for it. When Taeho finally reached the surface level of the ruins, he could sense the heat signatures more clearly. His colleagues were being held in the main research building, about half a kilometer away. The Volante were conducting some kind of procedure on them, probably trying to extract genetic samples or study their compatibility with ancient energies. Anger flared within him, and the flames around his body responded. Burning brighter and hotter, he had to be careful. The fire energy was connected to his emotions now. If he lost control, he could accidentally hurt the very people he was trying to save. Control, through understanding, the Pyrethy voice whispered in his mind. Fire is life energy. It responds to will and purpose, not rage. Taeho took a deep breath and focused his thoughts. His mission was clear: rescue his colleagues and expose the Volante crimes. Everything else was secondary. He approached the research building carefully, using his heat vision to track the movements inside. So-young was in the main laboratory, strapped to some kind of examination table. Junho and Haijin were in holding cells nearby. 3 Volante researchers were working on equipment around So-young, while 2 more guards patrolled the building. The building itself was made of standard prefabricated materials, not designed to withstand extreme temperatures. Taeho could melt through the walls easily, but that might trigger alarms or endanger his friends. He needed a more subtle approach. He circled to the back of the building where the power generators were located. The Volante technology relied on precise energy control, just like their barrier systems. If he could disrupt their power supply, without destroying it completely, he might be able to create enough confusion to mount a rescue. Taeho placed his hands on the main power coupling and carefully channeled heat energy into the system. Not enough to cause an explosion, but sufficient to overload the temperature regulation circuits. Within moments, warning lights began flashing throughout the building. He heard the musical voices of the Volante researchers calling to each other. In their own language, from what he could understand, they thought the power fluctuations were caused by unstable energy readings from the deep ruins. They were sending 2 guards to investigate. Perfect. Taeho positioned himself near the building entrance and waited. The 2 Volante guards emerged, carrying energy weapons and scanning devices. They were typical of their species, tall and angular, with bodies that looked like living crystal formations. What Taeho had not known before his transformation was how vulnerable those crystalline structures were to rapid temperature changes. As the guards walked past his hiding spot, Taeho stepped out behind them and released a controlled burst of heat energy. The sudden temperature spike caused hairline fractures to appear throughout their crystalline bodies. They collapsed immediately, not dead, but completely incapacitated. Thermal shock, the Pyrethy consciousness explained. Their bodies are like glass. Sudden temperature changes make them brittle. Taeho picked up one of the energy weapons and examined it. The device was designed for crystalline hands, but he found he could operate it by channeling small amounts of heat energy through the control surfaces. He entered the building through the main door. Moving silently through corridors he had walked many times during the past 8 months, everything looked the same. But now he could see the truth behind the Volante cooperation. They had been studying the human research team all along, waiting for the right moment to eliminate them. The main laboratory was just ahead. Through the walls, his heat vision showed him So-young's life signature, weaker than it should be. Whatever the Volante were doing to her was draining her strength. Taeho opened the laboratory door and stepped inside. Three Volante researchers looked up in shock as flames wreathed around his body. Valkyris was among them, holding some kind of medical scanner over Soyoung's unconscious form. Impossible, Valkyris said in his musical voice. The energy radiation should have killed you hours ago. The fire had other plans, Taeho replied, flames dancing between his fingers. Step away from her now. The Volante researchers backed away from the examination table, their crystalline features reflecting the light from Taeho's flames. He could see fear in their alien faces. Probably the first time they had felt truly threatened in centuries. You do not understand, said desperately. Human compatibility with ancient energies is dangerous. It could destabilize the entire galactic order. Your order, Taeho corrected, moving to Soyoung's side. She was alive but sedated, with several monitoring devices attached to her body. An order built on genocide and fear. He began carefully removing the devices, his enhanced senses allowing him to detect which ones were simply monitors and which might be harmful to disconnect. The Pyrathy consciousness guided him, sharing knowledge of biological systems and energy flows. The galaxy has been stable under Volante guidance for over 1,000 years, Valkyrie said. We have prevented countless wars and technological disasters. By murdering anyone who might challenge you, Taeho replied. He finished disconnecting the monitoring equipment and gently lifted Soyoung from the examination table. Her body felt cold against his enhanced temperature sensitivity, but her life signs were strong. The Volante researchers continued backing toward the laboratory's rear exit. You cannot stop what has already begun, Valkyrie said. The Council has ordered the elimination of all humans. Your homeworld will be sterilized before you can return to warn them. Taeho felt the flames around him surge with his anger, but he kept them under control. Then I had better hurry. He carried toward the laboratory exit, but stopped at the doorway and turned back to face the Volante researchers. The fire remembers, he said, letting them see the ancient knowledge burning in his eyes. It remembers every civilization you destroyed, every species you eliminated. And now it has found new carriers. The Pyrathy consciousness whispered one more piece of knowledge into his mind, something that made him smile despite the gravity of the situation. You made one critical mistake, Taeho told the terrified Volante. You assumed that ancient energy compatibility was rare. But humans do not just carry the genetic markers for fire energy. We carry markers for all the elemental forces. With that revelation burning in the air between them, Taeho carried Soyoung from the laboratory to rescue the rest of his team. The fire followed where he willed it, and his will was set on justice for every extinct civilization that cried out for vengeance. Taeho stood in the center of the chamber, flames dancing around his body like living ribbons of light. The fire did not burn his clothes or equipment. Instead, it seemed to protect him, creating a warm barrier between him and the cold stone. Whilst the energy barrier that had trapped him still shimmered across the chamber entrance. But now, instead of seeing it as an impossible obstacle, Taeho could sense its structure through his new abilities. The barrier was created by controlling temperature differences in the air itself. To a being who could manipulate thermal energy, it was no more solid than morning mist. Show me how to break through, he whispered to the Pyrathy consciousness that now shared space in his mind. Images flashed through his thoughts. He saw how to focus heat energy into precise beams, how to create temperature differences that would shatter crystalline structures, how to phase his own body through solid matter by temporarily converting it to superheated plasma. Taeho approached the energy barrier and placed his hand against it. Heat flowed from his palm, disrupting the delicate temperature balance that maintained the field. Within seconds, the barrier flickered and died. He stepped into the passage beyond, his enhanced senses immediately detecting the heat signatures of living beings throughout the ruins complex. Most were small creatures, probably local wildlife, but far above, he could sense for distinct human heat patterns and several larger cooler signatures that had to be the Soyoung, Jinho Haijin, he said their names like a prayer. I am coming. The journey up through the ruins was different now. Where before, he had needed artificial lighting to see in the dark passages, now he could sense heat patterns in the walls themselves. The Pyrathy had built their structures to channel thermal energy, and those ancient pathways still glowed faintly in his enhanced vision. As he climbed, the Pyrathy consciousness shared more knowledge with him. The extinct civilization had not been the only one to achieve elemental transcendence. There had been others. The Aquathy had merged with water and ice. The Terati had bonded with earth and metal. The Arati had become one with wind and lightning. All of them had been systematically hunted down by the Volanta over the centuries. The crystalline beings feared any species that could develop powers beyond their control. They had positioned themselves as the guardians of galactic stability, but in reality they were genocidal tyrants. How many civilizations have they destroyed? Taeho asked as he continued climbing. The answer came as a flood of images and emotions. Dozens of species, maybe hundreds, all eliminated because they showed potential for ancient energy compatibility. The Volante had been very careful, always making the extinctions look like natural disasters or inevitable evolution. But the pattern was clear to those who knew how to look for it. When Taeho finally reached the surface level of the ruins, he could sense the heat signatures more clearly. His colleagues were being held in the main research building, about half a kilometer away. The Volanti were conducting some kind of procedure on them, probably trying to extract genetic samples or study their compatibility with ancient energies. Anger flared within him, and the flames around his body responded, burning brighter and hotter. He had to be careful. The fire energy was connected to his emotions now. If he lost control, he could accidentally hurt the very people he was trying to save. Control, through understanding, the Parathi voice whispered in his mind. Fire is life energy. It responds to will and purpose, not rage. Taeho took a deep breath and focused his thoughts. His mission was clear: rescue his colleagues and expose the Volante crimes. Everything else was secondary. He approached the research building carefully, using his heat vision to track the movements inside. So-young was in the main laboratory, strapped to some kind of examination table. Junho and Haijin were in holding cells nearby. 3 Volante researchers were working on equipment around So-young, while 2 more guards patrolled the building. The building itself was made of standard prefabricated materials, not designed to withstand extreme temperatures. Taeho could melt through the walls easily, but that might trigger alarms or endanger his friends. He needed a more subtle approach. He circled to the back of the building where the power generators were located. The Volante technology relied on precise energy control, just like their barrier systems. If he could disrupt their power supply, without destroying it completely, he might be able to create enough confusion to mount a rescue. Taeho placed his hands on the main power coupling and carefully channeled heat energy into the system. Not enough to cause an explosion, but sufficient to overload the temperature regulation circuits. Within moments, warning lights began flashing throughout the building. He heard the musical voices of the Volante researchers calling to each other, in their own language. From what he could understand, they thought the power fluctuations were caused by unstable energy readings from the deep ruins. They were sending to guards to investigate. Perfect. Taeho positioned himself near the building entrance and waited. The 2 Volante guards emerged, carrying energy weapons and scanning devices. They were typical of their species, tall and angular, with bodies that looked like living crystal formations. What Taeho had not known before his transformation was how vulnerable those crystalline structures were to rapid temperature changes. As the guards walked past his hiding spot, Taeho stepped out behind them and released a controlled burst of heat energy. The sudden temperature spike caused hairline fractures to appear throughout their crystalline bodies. They collapsed immediately, not dead but completely incapacitated. Thermal shock, the Parathi consciousness explained. Their bodies are like glass. Sudden temperature changes make them brittle. Taeho picked up one of the energy weapons and examined it. The device was designed for crystalline hands, but he found he could operate it by channeling small amounts of heat energy through the control surfaces. He entered the building through the main door, moving silently through corridors he had walked many times during the past 8 months. Everything looked the same, but now he could see the truth behind the Volante cooperation. They had been studying the human research team all along, waiting for the right moment to eliminate them. The main laboratory was just ahead. Through the walls, his heat vision showed him So-young's life signature, weaker than it should be. Whatever the Volante were doing to her was draining her strength. Taeho opened the laboratory door and stepped inside. 3 Volante researchers looked up in shock as flames wreathed around his body. Valkyries was among them, holding some kind of medical scanner over So-young's unconscious form. Impossible, Valkyrie said in his musical voice. The energy radiation should have killed you hours ago. The fire had other plans, Taeho replied, flames dancing between his fingers. Step away from her. Now the Volante researchers backed away from the examination table, their crystalline features reflecting the light from Taeho's flames. He could see fear in their alien faces, probably the first time they had felt truly threatened in centuries. You do not understand, said desperately. Human compatibility with ancient energies is dangerous. It could destabilize the entire galactic order. Your order, Taeho corrected, moving to So-young's side. She was alive but sedated, with several monitoring devices attached to her body. An order built on genocide and fear. He began carefully removing the devices, his enhanced senses allowing him to detect which ones were simply monitors and which might be harmful to disconnect. The Parathi consciousness guided him, sharing knowledge of biological systems and energy flows. The galaxy has been stable under Volante guidance for over 1,000 years. Valkyrie said, we have prevented countless wars and technological disasters. By murdering anyone who might challenge you, Taeho replied. He finished, disconnecting the monitoring equipment and gently lifted So-young from the examination table. Her body felt cold against his enhanced temperature sensitivity, but her life signs were strong. The Volante researchers continued backing toward the laboratory's rear exit. You cannot stop what has already begun, Valkyrie said. The Council has ordered the elimination of all humans. Your homeworld will be sterilized before you can return to warn them. Taeho felt the flames around him surge with his anger, but he kept them under control. Then I had better hurry. He carried Soy toward the laboratory exit, but stopped at the doorway and turned back to face the Volante researchers. The fire remembers, he said, letting them see the ancient knowledge burning in his eyes. It remembers every civilization you destroyed, every species you eliminated, and now it has found new carriers. The Pyrathy consciousness, whispered one, more piece of knowledge into his mind, something that made him smile, despite the gravity of the situation. You made one critical mistake, Taeho told the terrified Volante. You assumed that ancient energy compatibility was rare, but humans do not just carry the genetic markers for fire energy, we carry markers for all the elemental forces. With that revelation burning in the air between them, Taeho carried Soyoung from the laboratory to rescue the rest of his team. The fire followed where he willed it, and his will was set on justice for every extinct civilization that cried out for vengeance. Taeho carried Soyoung through the corridors of the research building, flames dancing around them like protective spirits. She was starting to wake up, her eyelids fluttering, as the sedatives wore off. He could feel her body temperature rising, as her natural systems fought off whatever drugs the Volante had given her. Taeho, she whispered weakly, what happened? Where are we? Safe for now, he replied, though fire continued to flow around his hands. The Volante betrayed us. They have been planning to eliminate all humans from the research project. Tried to sit up straighter in his arms, her scientist mind immediately focusing despite her physical weakness. Eliminate us, but why? We were working together. Because we can do something they fear, Taeho said as they reached the holding cells where Junho and Haijin were imprisoned. We can bond with ancient energy sources. They see that as a threat to their control over the galaxy. The cell doors were secured with electronic locks that relied on temperature-sensitive circuits. Taeho placed his palm against the first door's locking mechanism and channeled heat through it. The lock overloaded and clicked open. Junho looked up from where he sat on the cell floor, his face showing relief and confusion in equal measure. Taeho, how did you escape? And what is that light around you? Long story, Taeho said, setting Soyoung down gently and moving to open Haijin's cell. Right now we need to get off this planet before more Volante arrive. Haijin stumbled out of her cell, rubbing her wrists where restraints had been. She was an engineer, always practical and direct. Our ship is in the main landing bay, but the Volante have guards posted. How are we going to get past them? Taeho was about to answer when alarms began wailing throughout the building. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in flashing red. Through the walls, his enhanced senses detected multiple heat signatures moving rapidly toward their location. I found the guards I disabled, he said grimly. We need to move now. He led his colleagues toward the building's emergency exit, flames trailing behind him like a living cloak. As they moved, he could sense the approaching Volante through their distinctly cool thermal signatures. There were at least 8 of them, all armed with energy weapons. Stay close to me, Taeho instructed. The fire will protect you, but only if you remain within its range. They burst through the emergency exit into the pale sunlight of Kethra's afternoon. The landing bay was visible across an open courtyard, but Volante's security forces were already taking positions around it. Taeho counted 12 hostiles, more than he had expected. Can you fight all of them? Junho asked nervously. I do not, no, Taeho admitted, but I am about to find out. The first energy blast came from their left flank. Taeho raised his hand instinctively, and flames leaped up to intercept the beam. The energy weapon's discharge was absorbed harmlessly into the fire barrier. Fascinating, Soyoung breathed despite their dangerous situation. The fire energy is converting their weapons into harmless thermal radiation. More energy blasts followed, from multiple directions. Each time, flames responded to Taeho's will, creating barriers that protected his team. But he could feel the strain. Maintaining defensive fire while moving was exhausting, even with the Pyrathy consciousness guiding him. The ship, Haijin called out, pointing toward the landing bay. If we can reach it, I can get us off planet in minutes. Taeho made a decision. Instead of trying to fight their way across the courtyard, he would use the most direct approach possible. He gathered fire energy around himself and his team, creating a moving dome of flames. Hold on to each other, he ordered. Do not let go, no matter what happens. The dome of fire began moving across the courtyard like a miniature sun. Volantia energy weapons fired continuously, but their beams simply vanished into the flames. The crystalline beings tried to flank them, but Taeho extended tendrils of fire to keep them at bay. When they reached the landing bay, Taeho had to pause to catch his breath. The constant energy manipulation was more tiring than he had anticipated. Sweat poured down his face, and his hands shook slightly. Are you all right? Soyoung asked, placing a hand on his shoulder. The moment her skin touched his, something unexpected happened. Taeho felt a surge of energy flow between them, and Soyoung gasped in surprise. Her eyes widened as thermal vision flickered briefly across her sight. What was that? She asked. Before Taeho could answer, Junho and Hyjin also reached out to touch him. The same energy transfer occurred, and both of them staggered as new sensations flooded their minds. I can feel heat signatures, Junho said in amazement. I can see the temperature of everything around us. Hyjin was staring at her hands in wonder. My body temperature is completely stable now. Even in this cold air, I feel perfectly comfortable. The pyrathy consciousness stirred in Taeho's mind, explaining what had happened. Contact with fire-bonded humans can awaken dormant abilities in others who carry the genetic markers. Your friends are beginning their own transformations. Taeho shared this information with his colleagues as they boarded their research ship. Hyjin immediately went to the pilot controls while the others strapped themselves in for departure. So, we all have these abilities? Soyoung asked as the ship's engines powered up. To some degree, Taeho replied, but there is more. The pyrathy were not the only ancient civilization to achieve elemental transcendence. There were others, and the Volante have been systematically destroying their sites to prevent anyone from accessing those powers. The ship lifted off from Kethra's surface, but their escape was far from over. Taeho's enhanced senses detected multiple Volante vessels in orbit around the planet, clearly waiting for them. 3 ships moving to intercept Hyjin, reported from the pilot seat. They are bigger and better armed than us. Can we outrun them? Junho asked. Not in normal space, Hyjin replied, but if we can reach the jump point, we might be able to escape to hyperspace. Energy weapons fire began lighting up space around them as the Volante ships closed in. Their research vessel was not designed for combat, but Taeho had an idea. Can you route ship's power through the external sensor array? He asked Hyjin. Yes, but why would we want to do that? Because I think I can use fire energy to overload their targeting systems, Taeho explained. Volante technology relies on precise temperature control. If I can create enough thermal interference, they might lose their weapon locks. Hyjin quickly rerouted power to the sensor array. Taeho placed his hands on the control panel and channeled fire energy through the ship's systems. Immediately, their vessel began radiating intense heat signatures in all directions. The Volante ship's targeting computers went wild as thermal static flooded their sensors. Their energy weapons fired randomly, missing their target by wide margins. It is working, Junho shouted as they pulled ahead of their pursuers. But Taeho was learning something disturbing from the pyrathy consciousness. The ancient beings were showing him images of other planets, other research sites where more humans were being held prisoner. This is not over, he said grimly as they reached the jump point. The Volante have facilities throughout the galaxy. They are holding humans and other compatible species for experimentation. Then we need to find them, Soyoung said firmly. We need to free them and expose what the Volante have been doing. As their ship entered hyperspace, fleeing toward human space, Taeho felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was no longer just a researcher who had gained unusual abilities. He was becoming something larger, a symbol of resistance against ancient tyranny. The fire that had refused to consume him was spreading to others now. Soon, the Volante would face something they had never encountered in their centuries of genocide, an entire species that could fight back, with powers they could not understand or counter. The hunt was just beginning, but now the hunters had become the hunted. 2 weeks after their escape from Kethra, Taeho and his team had reached the human research station at Proxima Base. What they found there was not the safe haven they had hoped for, but evidence that the Volante conspiracy reached much further than anyone had imagined. Dr. Park Soyoung stood in the station's medical bay, staring at the test results in her hands. Her enhanced thermal vision had stabilized, allowing her to see heat patterns with perfect clarity. More importantly, she could now sense the emotional states of other humans through subtle changes in their body temperature. The genetic markers are in every human we have tested, she reported to the team. 100% compatibility with ancient energy sources. We are not an anomaly, Taeho. We are exactly what we were meant to be. Junho looked up from the computer terminal where he was analyzing data from other human research teams across the galaxy. His newfound ability to regulate his body temperature had evolved into something more impressive. He could now survive in extreme environments that would kill normal humans. I have been tracking human research expeditions for the past 5 years, he said. 17 teams have disappeared under mysterious circumstances. All of them were studying ancient energy sites. Hyjin was working on the station's communication array, her enhanced electrical sensitivity allowing her to interface directly with electronic systems. She had discovered she could repair damaged technology by channeling controlled energy discharges through her fingertips. I am picking up distress signals from 3 different sectors, she announced. Human teams requesting emergency evacuation. From research sites, the messages are being blocked by Volante communication networks. Taeho felt anger flare within him, and flames automatically danced around his hands in response. He had gained better control over the fire energy in recent days, but strong emotions still triggered visible manifestations. They are accelerating their genocide, he said grimly. They know we escaped and are trying to eliminate all remaining humans before we can expose them. The pyrathy consciousness in his mind stirred, sharing new information. Images flooded his thoughts, showing locations throughout the galaxy where other ancient civilizations had left their elemental legacy sites. There are more places, Tejo said suddenly, not just fire energy sites. The pyrathy are showing me locations where the other elemental civilizations left their consciousness preserved. So-young moved closer, her enhanced senses picking up the elevated temperature that always accompanied Tejo's communications with the ancient beings. Other civilizations? She asked. The Aquathy masters of water and ice, Tejo explained as information flowed through him. The Tarati, who bonded with earth and metal. The Arathi, who became one with wind and lightning. All of them transcended physical death by merging with elemental forces, and the Volante have been preventing anyone from accessing these sites. Junho concluded. For over 1,000 years, Tejo confirmed. They position themselves as galactic peacekeepers, but they are really just afraid of losing control. Any species that develops elemental abilities becomes a threat to their technological dominance. Haijin looked up from her work on the communication array. I have managed to break through the Volante signal blocking. We are receiving multiple distress calls from human research teams. The nearest one is only 6 hours away by fast ship. Then, we go, Tejo said immediately. We rescue who we can, and try to reach one of the other elemental sites. Wait, So-young said, holding up her hand. We are only 4 people. How can we fight an entire galactic conspiracy? Before Tejo could answer, alarms began sounding throughout Proxima Base. Through the station windows, they could see Volante ships dropping out of hyperspace in formation around the research facility. They found us, Junho said tersely. Tejo moved to the window and extended his enhanced senses outward. He could detect the heat signatures of dozens of Volante aboard the approaching ships. But there was something else, something that surprised him. There are humans aboard those ships, he said. Prisoners, but alive. The station's communication system crackled to life with the musical voice of a Volante commander. Attention Proxima Base, you are harboring dangerous individuals who have been contaminated by illegal energy sources. Surrender them immediately, and no harm will come to your facility. Haijin was already working at her computer terminal, her electrical abilities allowing her to access systems faster than any normal interface. The station has defensive capabilities, but nothing that can stop a full Volante fleet. We do not need to stop them, Tejo said thoughtfully. We need to rescue their prisoners and escape to one of the elemental sites. He turned to his team, fire energy beginning to flow around him as a plan formed in his mind. The Volante ships will be scanning for thermal signatures. They expect to find normal humans. But what if we give them something they cannot understand? Over the next hour, they prepared for what might be the most dangerous mission of their lives. Tejo shared fire energy with every human on Proxima Base, temporarily awakening their dormant abilities. Some gained heat vision, others developed temperature resistance, and a few even manifested small flame manipulation powers. When the Volante boarding parties arrived at the station, they found something unprecedented. Instead of helpless human researchers, they encountered dozens of people who could see in perfect darkness, survive in extreme temperatures, and manipulate thermal energy. The crystalline beings' greatest advantage. Their advanced technology became a liability when faced with opponents who could disrupt their temperature-sensitive systems with a touch. During the chaos of the battle, Tejo and his team managed to board one of the Volante ships and locate the human prisoners. Among them were research teams from 3 different expeditions, all of whom had been captured while studying ancient sites. Dr. Kim Minsu from the Terra Nova expedition, one of the rescued researchers, introduced himself. They were trying to extract something from our blood, some kind of genetic sequence. Dr. Yoon Da-yoon from the Aurora project, said another. They kept asking us about our reactions to ancient artifacts. They seemed very interested in our compatibility ratings. As they escaped from the Volante ship in stolen shuttles, Tejo realized the full scope of what they were facing. The rescued researchers all carried the same genetic markers for elemental compatibility. The Volante had been systematically identifying and capturing humans with these traits. They are building a database, So-young concluded as they analyzed the data they had stolen from the Volante computers. They want to identify every human with elemental potential before we can discover our abilities naturally. Then we need to reach them first, Tejo said. We need to find the other elemental sites and awaken the consciousness of the Aquathi, Tarati, and Arathi. If humans can bond with all 4 elemental forces, we can give our people the power to defend themselves. Junho was studying star charts on the shuttle's navigation system. There is an Aquathi site in the Vega system, only 3 days from here, but intelligence reports show heavy Volante presence in that sector. Let them come, Haijin said, sparks dancing between her fingers as her electrical abilities continued to grow. We are not the same helpless researchers they tried to eliminate on Kethra. Tejo looked around at his expanding team of humans, each beginning to manifest their own elemental abilities. The fire that had awakened in him was spreading, just as the Pirathi consciousness had predicted. But more than that, he could sense something changing in human space. Word of their escape was spreading through unofficial channels. Other research teams were beginning to investigate ancient sites. More aggressively, human colonies were reporting strange energy, phenomena that coincided with moments of crisis or danger. The awakening was not limited to the people he had directly contacted. Something in the human genetic code was responding to the crisis, activating dormant abilities that had been waiting for thousands of years for the right trigger. The Volante made one critical mistake, Tejo said, as their shuttles entered hyperspace toward the Vega system. They thought they could eliminate us quietly, one research team at a time. But by forcing us to fight for survival, they have awakened something that has been sleeping in our DNA since before recorded history. The flames around his hands pulsed brighter as the Pirathi consciousness shared its ancient joy. After millennia of waiting, the elemental powers were finding new hosts, and these hosts were not content to simply survive. They were ready to reclaim their birthright and show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of becoming. The Aquathy ruins on Vega Prime were unlike anything Tejo had ever seen. Where the Pirathi sites had been all crystal and flame, these ancient structures seemed to flow like frozen water, their surfaces shifting between ice and liquid in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Dr. Yoon Dayun, from the rescued Aurora expedition team, had proven to have the strongest compatibility with water energy. When she placed her hands on the central Aquathy consciousness crystal, ice began forming in the warm air around her. "They are here," she said, her voice echoing strangely as if spoken from underwater. "The Aquathy consciousness has been waiting. Just like the Pirathi, they want to share their knowledge." Over the past month, their group had grown from 4 people to nearly 50. Word of the elemental awakening was spreading through human space faster than the Valenti could suppress it. Research teams, colonists, even military personnel were beginning to manifest abilities when exposed to ancient energy sites. Jun-Ho had discovered his own specialty, lay with earth energy. When they visited a Tarati site on Kepler Station, he had bonded with the ancient consciousness of the Stowmasters. Now he could sense mineral compositions through touch and reshape metal with his bare hands. Hyjin had found her calling with the Arethi. Her electrical abilities had evolved into something far more impressive. She could now control electromagnetic fields and even generate lightning from her fingertips. But it was Soyoung who had made the most disturbing discovery. "The genetic markers in our DNA are not random," she explained to the assembled group of enhanced humans. "They are artificial. Someone, or something, modified human genetics thousands of years ago, giving us the ability to bond with elemental forces." Tejo felt the Pirathi consciousness stir in his mind, confirming what Soyoung had discovered. Images flowed through his thoughts, showing him events from Earth's ancient past. The elemental civilizations did not just transcend their physical forms, he said slowly, as understanding dawned. Before they died, they sent expeditions to primitive worlds, looking for species that could carry on their legacy. Earth was one of those worlds, Soyoung continued. Early humans were genetically modified to carry dormant elemental abilities. We are literally the children of 4 extinct civilizations, designed to inherit their powers when we were ready. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just compatible with ancient energies by accident. They had been specifically created to be the inheritors of elemental mastery. "That explains why the Volante are so afraid of us," Junho said, earth energy crackling around his hands. "We are not just another species that might develop dangerous abilities. We are the intended successors to the greatest civilizations in galactic history." Their discussion was interrupted by urgent communications from human space. The Volante had abandoned all pretense of maintaining galactic order. Entire human colonies were being evacuated under the threat of energy contamination. Protocols. Research stations were being destroyed. Civilian transports were disappearing. "They are not even trying to hide it anymore," Hyjin reported, monitoring communication channels through her electrical interface abilities. "The Volante Council has declared humanity a galactic threat. They are mobilizing their entire fleet." But something else was happening throughout human space. As news of the Volante aggression spread, humans everywhere were beginning to manifest elemental abilities spontaneously. Colonists were discovering they could purify water with a touch. Farmers were learning to sense the health of soil and crops. Engineers were finding they could interface directly with energy systems. "It is like our entire species is awakening at once," Dr. Kim Min-soo observed. He had developed the ability to sense electromagnetic fields, making him invaluable for detecting Volante ships at long range. Tejo understood what was happening. The genetic modifications made by the ancient civilizations had included a trigger mechanism. When humanity faced extinction, the dormant abilities would activate to ensure survival. "We need to warn Earth," he decided. "If the Volante are mobilizing their entire fleet, they will target our homeworld first." But when they tried to communicate with Earth, they discovered something that changed everything. The planet was not defenseless. Millions of humans had already begun manifesting elemental abilities. The government had formed emergency response teams of fire controllers to fight natural disasters. Agricultural scientists were using Earth sense to optimize crop production. The military was experimenting with lightning wielders as a new form of electronic warfare. Humanity is not waiting to be rescued, Sa-Young said with amazement as they reviewed the reports. We are adapting and fighting back on our own. The Aquathy consciousness in Dayun's mind shared new information that made their situation even more hopeful. The four elemental civilizations had left more than just their consciousness in crystal formations. They had hidden technology, weapons, and knowledge caches throughout the galaxy, all designed to be accessible only to their genetic inheritors. There is a master site, Dayun reported, her voice carrying the ancient wisdom of the Water Masters. A place where all four elemental consciousness can merge temporarily. If we can reach it, we can awaken abilities in humans that the individual sites cannot provide. The location was in the galactic core, on a world that had been quarantined by the Volante for over 500 years. Getting there would require passing through the largest Volante fleet concentration in the galaxy. It is a trap, Junho said bluntly. They have to know we will try to reach the master site. They will be waiting for us. Let them wait, Taeho replied, flames dancing around his entire body now. His abilities had grown tremendously over the past weeks. He could now create fire constructs, teleport short distances through thermal energy, and even resurrect recently deceased tissue by restoring its thermal patterns. We are not the same for researchers who escaped from Kethra, he continued. We have 50 enhanced humans, each with abilities the Volante cannot counter. And we have something they never expected, an entire species that refuses to go quietly into extinction. As they prepared for the journey to the galactic core, reports continued flooding in from across human space. The awakening was accelerating. Entire planets were manifesting coordinated elemental abilities. Human ships were beginning to show up with hulls that could regulate their own temperature, weapons that channeled lightning, and shields made of controlled water density. The Volante had spent centuries systematically eliminating species that showed elemental potential. But they had never faced an entire civilization that was genetically designed to inherit all four elemental disciplines simultaneously. The ancient civilizations planned for this. Taeho realized as the Pirathi consciousness shared more of their long-term strategy. They knew that eventually their killers would face judgment. They designed us not just to survive, but to restore balance to the galaxy. When their fleet of captured and modified ships entered hyperspace toward the galactic core, they carried with them something unprecedented. The combined knowledge of four transcended civilizations, wielded by a species that had been created specifically to use those powers. The Volante had ruled the galaxy through fear and technological superiority for over 1,000 years, but they had never faced enemies who could turn their greatest strengths into weaknesses with a touch. The fire, water, earth, and wind were coming home, and they were bringing justice with them. The master site was a world of impossible beauty, where crystals of fire, water, earth, and air grew together in harmonious spirals that reached toward the stars. At its center stood a massive temple complex that pulsed with the combined consciousness of all four elemental civilizations. Taeho led his team through the temple's main chamber, where streams of liquid fire flowed alongside rivers of liquid lightning, while floating stones orbited columns of crystallized wind. This was where the ancient civilizations had first achieved transcendence together, and where they had planned for the day when their genetic inheritors would claim their birthright. The Volante fleet is in orbit, Hyjin reported, her electrical senses detecting the massive concentration of ships above them, over 3,000 vessels. The entire Volante military seems to be here. Good, Taeho said calmly. Then we can settle this once and for all. Dr. Park So-young approached the central altar where all four elemental energies converged. Her abilities had grown beyond simple heat vision to something approaching true thermal mastery. She could now sense the life force patterns of entire populations. There are humans aboard those ships, she reported. Thousands of them. The Volante are using our people as living shields. Dr. Lee Junho placed his hands on the earth energy channels that ran through the temple floor. His connection to the Tirati consciousness allowed him to sense the mineral composition of the Volante ships above. Their hulls are made of crystallized carbon compounds, he said. Extremely strong, but brittle when subjected to rapid temperature changes. Dr. Yoon Da-yoon stood beside a pillar of frozen water that never melted despite the heat from nearby fire streams. Her bond with the Aquathy had given her power over all forms of molecular cohesion. I can affect the structural integrity of their ships, she said. If we coordinate our abilities, we might be able to disable their fleet without harming the human prisoners. Engineer Cho Hyjin moved to a conduit where pure electrical energy flowed like visible music. Her Arathy abilities now allowed her to control electromagnetic phenomena on a planetary scale. Their communication and navigation systems all rely on electromagnetic fields, she added. I can disrupt their coordination while you work on their hulls. But Tejo was receiving information from the Pyrothi consciousness that changed their entire strategy. The ancient fire masters were showing him something hidden in the temple's deepest chamber, a device that had been waiting for this moment for thousands of years. "There is another way," he said, flames dancing around his body as excitement built. Within him, the elemental civilizations left us more than just their abilities. They left us the means to offer our enemies the same choice they once faced. In the temple's heart, beneath layers of elemental energy, lay a crystalline matrix designed to broadcast consciousness across interstellar distances. It was how the ancient civilizations had achieved their final transcendence, merging their minds with elemental forces while preserving their individual awareness. "We can offer the Volante the same transformation they have been denying everyone else," Tejo explained. "They can join the new galactic order as equals, or they can face the consequences of their genocide." The process required all for human elemental masters to work together, channeling their abilities through the ancient matrix. As they took their positions around the device, consciousness from all four elemental civilizations flowed through them. Above in orbit, the Volante fleet detected massive energy readings emanating from the planet's surface. Admiral Keth, commanding the largest military force in galactic history, ordered an immediate bombardment of the temple complex. The energy beams at Lansdowne from 3,000 ships should have vaporized everything on the planet's surface. Instead, they struck barriers of fire, ice, stone, and lightning that absorbed every joule of destructive energy and converted it into something else entirely. The ancient matrix activated, broadcasting a signal that reached every crystalline being in the fleet simultaneously. For the first time in their species' history, the Volante found themselves experiencing genuine emotions as the elemental consciousness touched their minds. They felt the grief of the Pyrothi. As their civilization chose transcendence over extinction, they experienced the sorrow of the Aquathi as they watched their children die from environmental collapse. They shared the rage of the Tirati as their homeworld was stripped of resources. They understood the despair of the Araethi as their atmosphere was poisoned beyond recovery. And then they felt something else. The love and hope that had driven all four civilizations to modify primitive human genetics, ensuring that their legacy would survive even if their physical forms did not. "We offer you choice." Tejo's voice echoed through every Volante ship, carried by the fire energy that now permeated their crystalline communication systems. "Join us in building a galaxy where all species can reach their potential, or continue your path of fear and stagnation alone." The response was not immediate. Throughout the Volante fleet, heated debates erupted as crystalline beings confronted emotions and concepts they had never experienced before. Some argued for continuing the bombardment. Others demanded to know why they had never been told the truth about the elemental civilizations. But the majority, faced with undeniable evidence of their species' crimes and the beauty of what they had destroyed, made a different choice. Admiral Kethvaron was the first to respond. We did not know." His musical voice carried shame and wonder in equal measure. "Our historical records claimed that ancient civilizations died from natural causes. We thought we were protecting galactic stability." "Your leaders knew," Soyoung replied, her thermal senses detecting the emotional turmoil aboard the Volante ships. "But most of your people were kept ignorant. You can choose differently now." What followed was the most unprecedented moment in galactic history. Over 2,000 Volante ships powered down their weapons and requested permission to land on the planet's surface. The crews wanted to experience the elemental energies directly, to understand what their ancestors had denied them for centuries. The remaining ships, commanded by Volante, who could not accept the new reality, withdrew to the edge of the system. They would return to Volante space and report the failure of their mission, but they would not fire on their own people who had chosen a different path. Over the following weeks, the Master Site became a pilgrimage destination for beings from across the galaxy. Species that had been suppressed by Volante technology policies arrived to discover their own hidden potentials. Many carried genetic modifications similar to humanity's, gifts from other transcended civilizations that had been forgotten or destroyed. Dr. Kim Tejo stood in the temple's central chamber, surrounded by beings of dozens of different species, all learning to work with elemental energies. The flames that danced around his body now carried sparks of every other elemental force, making him a living bridge between different forms of transcendence. Soyoung had established the first interspecies Elemental Academy, teaching beings from across the galaxy how to safely develop their inherited abilities. Junho led expeditions to awaken dormant ancient sites throughout Volante space, bringing light to worlds that had been kept in technological darkness for centuries. Hyjin worked with former Volante engineers to develop new technologies that combined crystalline computing with elemental energy manipulation, creating systems that enhanced life rather than controlling it. And throughout human space, the awakening continued. Entire colonies were developing coordinated elemental abilities. Earth itself was becoming a garden world as humans learned to work in harmony with natural forces. The military was being restructured around elemental specialists who could protect, without destroying, but perhaps most importantly, the human prisoners who had been held aboard Volante ships were returning home with stories of forgiveness and cooperation. The galaxy was learning that strength did not have to come through domination, and that the greatest power was the ability to offer choice rather than demand submission. Tejo often returned to the chamber, where his transformation had begun, where the Pyrathy consciousness had first offered him the choice between death and transcendence. The crystal formation still pulsed with ancient fire, but now it was joined by streams of water, earth, and air energy from humans who had bonded with the other elemental forces. The fire that refused to consume, he said to himself, watching new flames dance between his fingers. It was never meant to destroy. It was meant to kindle hope in others. The Volante had abandoned him to the flames, expecting them to burn away his life. Instead, the fire had followed him across the galaxy, spreading from person to person, world to world, until it had ignited a transformation that changed the nature of galactic civilization itself. The age of fear was ending. The age of elemental harmony had begun, and at its heart burned a fire that would never be extinguished, tended by a species that had been created specifically to carry the light of 4 ancient civilizations into a future where all beings could reach their true potential.